so excited to be here, and hi to Mo and Nico. Great to be moderating this panel with you guys. So we're talking about connecting Solana to the rest of crypto. And this topic implies a future where users are spread out across dApps in many different blockchains rather than using mainly one blockchain. First, to set the stage, do you guys agree that's how things will ultimately play out?
Okay. First of all, hi everyone. I'm Mo, and thanks for having me here. So yeah, I have a kind of hot take about this topic. I think in the ideal world, you don't need many blockchains. You just need one state machine that gets synchronized in a sub-second across the world. And since this machine is Turing complete, you basically can run everything on it, right? So, and having multiple of these machines, it just reduces the network effect. So I would say it would be best if we only have one a blockchain. But the reason that in future it's not gonna be like one blockchain is because of the obvious economic reasons, and it's a good thing. Like if we only had Solana and there was no competitor, there was no rush for getting Solana better. So yeah.
Right. Do you agree, Nico?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the way I view it is that, generally speaking, if you look at the biggest products on Solana today, for example, Jupyter, what it takes care of is aggregating and abstracting away from which blockchain, or rather, in this case, which DEX or protocol you want to use, and just asks you basically what you want to do, and then it does the thing for you without you having to tell it on top. And I think the same applies for a multi-chain future. In the future, I think people, generally speaking, especially more normie users to some extent, don't really want to worry, okay, what's the best blockchain for this specific thing that I want to do? Rather, they want to have the same experience as in TradFi, where they just tell some sort of engine or something, okay, I want to swap this token, or I want to send money. Please figure out for me what's the best infrastructure for this. Right. And along the lines of offering a UX that's similar to TradFi in the good ways, of course, is, in my opinion, on one hand, intense, and on the other hand, privacy, which is, just quick tangent, why we're building Archeum, because we think if you're a normal user, you don't want all your trades to be publicly visible, and you don't want to tell every last detail of what action you want to take to the blockchain. Rather, you just want it to happen.
Okay, so in general, I think we agree that in the future, we'll probably see maybe a handful of blockchains, maybe not hundreds or even dozens, but maybe 10 or so, 10 or less. And then, but users won't even think about this, right? Like, I think ideally what we want to see is people just choosing the dApp that is best for whatever use case they're looking at, and that they think just works, and you don't have to care about which network it's on. So what technologies are enabling this sort of experience today?
Yeah, so to double down on Nico's take, the intent-based protocols are the future of how we interact with blockchains. It abstracts away the details of how to interact with blockchains, the need for gas, the need to submit transactions and land transactions. They all going to get abstracted away by intents, and we already have multi-chain wallets that help users to move funds, to interact with different dApps on different blockchains. We just need one more step of having these intent-based protocols in place to basically remove the friction for users.
When you say intent-based,
yes,
you're talking about saying, okay, the thing I care about is, say, swapping tokens.
Yes, exactly.
I don't care where it happens. I just want to swap these two tokens, and then the protocol will, I don't know, like route my transactions to where it makes sense?
Yes. The example that I mention a lot when I want to explain is how Uber works. Like when you want to get an Uber, you just specify that I want to go from this source to this destination. You don't specify how I want to go. You just specify the requirements, and the driver drives you from the source to the destination. This is basically an intent-based thing. The same thing should happen on blockchain. Whenever you want to move from Ethereum to Solana, you just specify that I want to do this thing, and this thing magically happens. And that's intent-based protocols.
Right. And then the UX to do that with would probably be a wallet, right? Like.
Yes,
yeah.
Wallets play a key role because it's the entry point where user sign the intent and basically say that I want to do this, and it gets executed.
Right. Nico, what do you think are the enablers for this just like seamless cross-chain future to happen?
Yeah, so of course, intent-based bridging or intent-based architectures in general are huge. Definitely agree with Mo on that. But just something that's like a little bit different that I think is also very important is you touched upon earlier that in the future there's probably not going to be like 1,000 chains or something, but maybe a handful, and those will take care of probably 80% of the use cases, or maybe even 99%, or what it may be. However, for that to happen, I think off-chain, chain-agnostic infrastructure is really important. And let me explain what I mean by that. Because generally speaking, if you go on CoinMarketCap or something today, or Birdeye, for example, you'll see there's thousands, maybe tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of different tokens and of different chains. And the reason for this is because up until recently, and still today to some extent, whenever someone has a new use case that they want to do with a blockchain, be that they need it to be very fast, like Solana, or they want it to be very cheap, or they want it to be optimized for gaming, whatever, they said, oh, okay, let me create a new chain just for this, which is how we ended up in the state that we are today. However, I think the future is more along the lines of saying, okay, let's use verifiable compute to basically compute something off-chain, and then post this on-chain, and then basically prove using cryptography that we can say, whatever we computed off-chain here, is the correct result, and it wasn't cheated in some manner or something like this. And through that, we can really give, to some extent, superpowers to existing chains by computing things that they normally wouldn't be able to compute, but using cryptography, still being able to make those use cases happen on existing chains. So I think leaning more into that is important as well, because otherwise, intent-based things are just going to be quite difficult to build, correct me if I'm wrong, if there's just so many different chains that you need to integrate each of them separately. I think this architecture of saying we give existing chains more abilities has more potential.
Sorry, but will off-chain compute have the potential of centralizing Web3?
Not directly, no. That's what I was talking about with cryptography. So for example, in the case of Archeum, what we do, essentially with Archeum, what we want to do is we want to offer privacy, or rather private shared state, so you can have an encrypted decentralized exchange, for example, on a decentralized blockchain, on Solana. The problem is, if we would want to build that with a normal Solana smart contract, we would not be able to do it. Because to do this, we need sorts of cryptographic primitives, such as zero-knowledge proofs, but in our case, multi-party computation. And Solana doesn't support executing these cryptographic primitives. And so what we basically do is we say, let's execute this off-chain, and then we can use special types of cryptography to generate kind of like proofs or other ways that you can prove fault or prove the correct execution. And then all we do is we post the result, and we post the proof on-chain so that anyone can see, okay, this is the result, and this is a cryptographic proof that this result is actually what I expect that was computed correctly. So in that sense, anyone can execute this more difficult or computation that isn't normally supported by a blockchain off-chain. But you can be still sure that this person isn't cheating or abusing their power by just verifying that the proof that was posted along with that data is actually verifies.
Got it. Okay, so that has the potential to give the ability to execute like very maybe complex dApps or use cases to any blockchain. So a blockchain doesn't necessarily have to support smart contracts. They can use this off-chain computational system to do that. Is that the idea?
Precisely. Like, it doesn't even have to be something super complex because, for example, if you look at Solana, initially they didn't support verifying zero-knowledge proofs, and soon they finally will, but it's been a process that takes quite long, of course, because it's a big feature to implement. Mm-hmm. And so, for that reason, if for every small thing that Solana doesn't currently support, we would go to the Solana core team and tell them, please add this, they'd be flooded with requests and they wouldn't be able to support everything, which then basically means as a developer, you have the choice. Either we build our own chain, which isn't ideal for a cross-chain future, or you basically say we build systems whereby, we can run these things off-chain, but still connect them with existing systems.
Okay. Okay. So we have two super interesting insights here. One is, in order to enable this seamless cross-chain future, we'll need intent-based protocols, and also the ability to, for any chain to perform more complex computation without having to maybe launch a separate chain or upgrade their own chain, but the ability to do it off-chain, but then prove it cryptographically and upload it to, or download it, or post it to their own chain. Okay, but then I think we're missing like a key piece in cross-chain use, which are bridges, right? I mean, bridges are the way that people move from chain to chain, and we've seen how much risk is involved in bridging. Like, most of the biggest hacks have been bridge-related. So how do you guys think that we can reduce this risk of using bridges?
Right. So, like, about hacks and like the security incidents, one of the reasons is that it feels that like bridges are getting hacked regularly.
Yeah.
Is that they are actually so big and so common for users, and they are having a lot of TVL. So whenever a hack happens, it spreads. The news spreads really fast. But the fact is that the risk on bridges currently is really similar to other DeFi protocols. It's a smart contract risk. And the hacks were really related to the smart contract itself. But what we do is, and the reason is that there's a lot of money locked on the bridges that makes it makes hackers interested in those networks, right? So instead of locking funds for bridging, the intent-based idea basically allows anyone to fulfill a bridge request without having a large pool of funds on one blockchain. So it reduces the risk a lot and brings a much more smooth user experience.
Okay, so you're saying intent-based protocols reduce the need to use bridges altogether?
No, like the bridge concept is a vague concept. It removes the need for classic bridging, which LPs needed to lock the funds on both networks, and those funds were at risk, right? But with intent-based, you don't need to lock funds on blockchains, and instead, anyone can fulfill the order whenever there is a request for bridging.
Okay, without needing to lock funds in both blockchains.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, got it. What are your thoughts on like bridge risks?
I mean, obviously can't disagree with that. But, for the time being, unfortunately, a lot of bridges still rely on, locking funds to some extent. So I think that's important to address too. And for those, as Mo said, inherently the thing you have is smart contract risk. And reducing smart contract risk is, not just a problem for bridges, but for pretty much any crypto protocol out there. However, there is, there is no silver bullet for avoiding it altogether, obviously. But there's a decent amount of things along the lines of defense and depth that you can do to minimize your smart contract risk. So, for starters, you should obviously always test and fuzz your code, which goes for pretty much any software, but not everyone does. Then the next one, which is, kind of a no-brainer as well, is especially if you're not just building it as a little hobby project, but you want to build it to be a real company to some extent, or a real project, you should always get your code audited. And of course, this plays in together with writing testing and fuzzing, because if there's any auditors in the crowd, you probably know what it's like to audit a code base with 0 tests, because for you as a developer, it's not worth it either, because then your auditor is just going to find tons of stuff that you would have found with 1 test anyway, and miss the truly important stuff that they would have found that you wouldn't have found. And then beyond that, I mean, those are the most obvious ones, but I think beyond that, 2 other things that I think are quite important as well is, on one hand, open sourcing ideally your code, or at least open sourcing your design and making your design as accessible and debatable as possible, having good docs. And this isn't just so that people can look at your protocol and say, oh, cool, this is how it works. Let me write a Twitter thread about it. But rather so that if there is some flaw inside of your design, they can give you feedback. Because inherently, I still believe that most people in the crypto space are good actors. So if they find a flaw in your design, I think most people would go to you and tell you, hey, I found a big bug in your thing that will allow me to drain your bridge or your smart contract in some manner, and please give me a small bug bounty instead of stealing all your money, hopefully. And I think the final thing, specifically for bridges, if you look at the biggest bridge hack of all time, was the Axie Infinity one, the Ronin Bridge. And there was a couple things that was wrong with that one, including, for example, it not being audited and stuff like that. But most importantly, it being a multi-sig bridge. Because if you look at how the exploit happened, like if you look at some other exploits against smart contracts, you can really see it's some crazy thing with manipulating memory or whatever. But in the case of the Ronin Bridge, it was really just one guy had like 3 of the keys needed for the multi-sig, which held $350 million or some crazy number like that. And they just hacked into the system. So yeah, just to summarize, obviously, first is having good coding practices in general. Second, getting your stuff audited. Third, having your design be up for scrutiny. And fourth, well, I mean, not using a multi-sig for your bridge, if you can.
Those are great points, and you bring up a really important issue, which is bridging many times involves trusting centralized parties. Like they're many times held under multisigs. How can we avoid this? Like, where are we with the technology so that bridges don't have to rely on multisigs? Like, are there what are versions of decentralized bridges that people can rely on today?
Yeah.
Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I'll let you go first.
So obviously, currently all the bridges are basically multisigs, and that's not a good thing. And the path forward is obvious. It's like zero knowledge proofs that can enable decentralized bridging, but we are still in progress of that. Sure.
Yeah, like totally agree with Mo on that one. And I think it kind of ties back to what I said earlier in the sense that, like, if you look at academic papers or something, you'd think, oh, the solution is obvious. Just use zero-knowledge proofs or use multi-party computation or fully homomorphic encryption or something. The problem is, it says that in academic papers, but in practice, it's not that easy for the reason I mentioned earlier. It's that Solana doesn't, or most blockchains don't support verifying every type of proof, or they don't support every type of cryptographic operation, which is why I think it's so important to, instead of building a new network for everything, to basically say, okay, for these existing chains, we want to give them superpowers. We want to give them the ability to support more features without needing to wait potentially even years to add them. which then will allow us to more quickly transition to more advanced bridging models and smart contract models in general.
So right now, you both agree that the technology to get to more decentralized and therefore safer bridges is zero-knowledge proofs, but is it because it's too hard to implement that it hasn't been so widespread until today, or what's the holdup?
Nico can go, but yeah, it's too, like, on paper it's possible, but it's like too complex or too computation heavy, and like verifying those proofs on chain is like not practical.
Yeah, I mean, Mo basically said it. Some of you guys know, it says on the hat I'm wearing as well. Like prior to now that we're doing Archeum, I was, well, we're still the same team, but we were Elusive, which was the leading zero-knowledge proof protocol on Solana. And I can tell you from first-hand experience, verifying zero-knowledge proofs on Solana today is not nice at all. Fortunately, Solana is adding syscalls, which will make this a little bit easier, but those won't work for every single type of zero-knowledge proofs. And the other side of this as well is that the tooling, this is improving, but it's still not all the way there yet. The tooling for zero-knowledge proofs has made big leaps and bounds over the last years, but it's still not ideal. For example, when we were writing the circuits for Elusive before, we had so many issues that, if you're, especially someone who's not into cryptography, who, doesn't want to hire a cryptographer or is not a cryptographer, doesn't want to deal with the whole time because, there's so many edge cases. So yeah, as Mo said, better tooling for verification, but also better tooling for creating zero-knowledge proofs. But yeah, fortunately, both of these are making tons of progress. So the future is bright.
Okay. Okay, so we've talked about some of the tools, technologies that are needed for a seamless cross-chain experience, zero-knowledge proofs, this off-chain computation system, intent-based protocols. But I think those are more in the kind of just like infrastructure layer. What about in the, to make things simpler on the kind of front-end UX layer for like the end-user experience to be easier? Because right now, moving from chain to chain is pretty clunky. Like I was just saying, like myself, like I'm just, I'm covering DeFi every day, but like I would usually do like move funds via a centralized exchange, I'm ashamed to say. I think that's, that's probably the experience for most people, to be honest. Right now, sexes just like make things easier, even though I think a lot of people here would agree, like, ideally you will be doing everything in a Web3 decentralized way. So what's missing on that front to just, make the Web3 bridging experience the default one?
Yeah. Yeah, one of the, like, if you ever try to like onboard a non-crypto person to use blockchain for the first time, you see how hard is it to teach that person what's gas. This concept is just like, it's a crypto thing, and people never seen it before. Like, imagine in an example of like getting Uber, you needed to have Uber credit for requesting an Uber. Like it's and we have to tackle this problem. Like it should be the #1 priority in the user experience, because like whatever you want to do, you need gas, and it's let's say you want to bridge from chain A to B. Even if you receive the funds on chain B, you still need gas to interact.
Yeah.
So it's we have like some workarounds, like giving users some gas on arrival, but we have to abstract away the whole thing. It's like the clutch on the cars. And I'm sure in future we won't need to explain gas to people to interact with blockchains.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, totally agree. But like the other thing that I still think is important is, obviously I'm a bit biased, but privacy for sure. Because you spoke about onboarding people who've never used crypto before to crypto. And whenever I meet a friend who hasn't used crypto before and I tell them, hey, you want to try it out? And they're like, wait, I can see how you sent me funds. I'm like, yeah, that's for everything. Whether you're trading, whether you're bridging, whether you're doing anything, everyone can see what you're doing, whether you want to or not, and there's no way to turn that off. I have not once had someone react to that by being like, oh man, I wish my bank account worked the exact same way so that everyone could see what I do. Yeah. And so I think that's something that, is not the forefront of many people's minds when they first try out crypto because they're simply not aware of it. But as soon as they get a bit deeper into it, it significantly restrains what you want to do. And that ties into centralized exchanges as well. Because if you're like some big investor or something and you have a complex trading strategy that you're paying your quants millions of dollars to develop, or simply you have a trade that you might not want the entire world to know about because you're buying some cringe meme coin or something, you might not necessarily want the entire world to know that, so that's why you resort to using a centralized exchange in some cases. However, with Archium, we try to combat that by allowing you to build anything you want in an encrypted manner.
Perfect. And then to wrap up, I'm interested to hear your take on, in this cross-chain future, what the role of Solana and maybe other big chains is. Like, do you think that all chains will be doing everything, or do you think each chain will be more specialized to specific use cases?
Yeah, definitely. Each chain has its own features, which makes it better for some use cases. But in Mayan, we think Solana can be the chain that connects every other chain together. It's like a glue. And the way that we use Solana is that, let's say you want to move your assets from Ethereum to like an L2 to Arbitrum, right? We need to find the best provider for that service. You create an intent, you say, I want to move my funds from Ethereum to Arbitrum, and we need to find the best provider for that request. And the way that we find that is through Solana. We hold an auction on Solana and find the best provider, and that provider fulfills your request on Arbitrum. And this way we have a decentralized protocol that basically finds the best provider for each service, and it's all through Solana.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with Mo. If you look today, actually, Solana already is, in many metrics, the leading ecosystem. For example, if you look at who's doing the most DeFi volume and stuff like that, it is Solana. And, why not? It's the fastest, the cheapest. No one will complain about that specifically. And up until recently, like at the beginning, what was sort of holding Solana back from becoming this really rank 1 and global settlement layer, whether that be for bridging or even rollups to some extent, is that it always had this, bad thing on Twitter where people would be like, oh, Solana, VC chain, it's centralized, blah, blah, blah. Whereas Ethereum, ideal, it's wonderful, it's, decentralized, which is true as well. However, Solana has evolved a lot in that sense, which means that now we can really say it's, fast, cheap, but also extremely decentralized, which I think makes it primed to become the #1 as a settlement layer for all of blockchain.
Really? Okay, so you guys agree that you think that Solana will be the main chain for global settlement? It will be the place where most financial transactions happen, and then maybe the other chains will be secondary to it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I mean, I think we wouldn't both be building on that as our primary chain if we weren't extremely confident in that, yeah.
What do you think that other chains will be more used for, like gaming, or like, do you think there'll be more like specific use cases on other chains, or what will the role of other chains be?
I don't see a reason why people should use other chains.
Wow.
It's all on Solana. So So
Interesting. All right. Well, thanks so much, guys. This was super fascinating to chat with you about cross-chain, and hope you all enjoyed it as well. And have a great lunch hour, and hope you are also all subscribed to The Defiant.